Ma'am, you're live now.
Good evening, everybody, and welcome to this GETI Live Talk as part of our disruptive education movement led by our founder, Dr. Sunita Gandhi. This is Roli Tripathi, Head, Global Education and Training Institute. Well, I'm elated today to welcome here our very special guest, Dr. Thom Markham, who's based in San Francisco, USA. Dr. Thom Markham shall be talking about and apprising us of the global rise of project based learning. We welcome you, Dr. Markham. It's a pleasure to host you here today.
Thank you so
And
much, Rory. It's a pleasure to
thank,
be here. And
thank you.
good evening to India and good morning here. But it's great to talk to everyone.
To share with you here, sir, that today in India we are celebrating the Teachers' Day. So, first of all, special greetings to you on this day and to all my lovely, conscientious, resilient, and ever evolving teachers, the leaders of our society. This is indeed a day to salute your efforts as we sail through this historically difficult time, I must say, in our lives. Dear teachers, you have worked really hard for your children, despite the huge challenges, not only for the mainstream children, but for even the disadvantaged students or those with learning difficulties. All this while struggling with technological prowess in areas we didn't have. Gratitude to all of you from us as school leaders, as parents, and every role we can imagine us in. I can just aptly say, not all heroes wear capes. Some are found teaching in virtual classrooms too. So, congratulations to all the teachers. And that was on a lighter note. But when we think of the challenges generally faced by the educators, over the time, we have struggled to provide learning that is deep and long lasting. As educators, we always want to relate learning to real life while we create lifelong learners. Now, project based learning today emerges as the optimal education method for authentic 21st century learning. It's a practical teaching strategy for, let's say, allowing students to solve problems or do simulations that mimic the real life. And imagine how fortunate we are today when we have someone having this as his forte, Dr. Thom Markham, our guest for the day. Dr. Markham is the founder and CEO of PBL Global. He's a psychologist, an educator, he's an author, a speaker, an internationally respected consultant to schools focused on project based learning, 21st century skills, innovation, and high performance cultures. He has authored two best selling books on project based learning: the Buck Institute for Education's Handbook on Project Based Learning and the Project Based Learning Design Coaching Guide. It is expert tools for innovation and inquiry for K 12 educators, as well as redefining smart, awakening students' power to reimagine their world. So, Dr. Markham, welcome again, and how are you today?
I'm very good. Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here. And I will second what you just said, Rolly. Gratitude to all the teachers in India. Gratitude to all teachers around the world who are working very hard at the moment to cope with a challenging situation. And I think doing a very good job of it considering the circumstances. So I'm very, very happy to have an opportunity today to talk to everyone.
Thank you so much, Dr. Markham. We all know, dear friends, that PBL, let's use this term, PBL for project based learning from here on in our discussion, as PBL is becoming widely used in schools and other educational settings. We have to understand that there are certain key characteristics that differentiate doing a project from engaging in rigorous project based learning. So we know it's becoming very popular now, the PBL. Maybe ask Dr. Markham present over here, why is PBL now becoming so popular?
Well, really, I think is a word you mentioned in your introduction, evolving. So the world is evolving at a very rapid rate, as we all know, and it's moving in directions of being more personalized, design, skills, strengths, attitudes, sort of your personal qualifications to succeed in the world. And it's not that your certification or your degree from the university or whatever it might be isn't important, but there's more of a balance now between that degree and what you can actually do in life. And so PBL is a really has kept pace with that evolution because it's the way we can help young people attain that. It's a method of problem solving, as you mentioned. It's also, I would say, even more than a method, it's a philosophy of engaging the world in a creative way. And so PBL is, as you say, growing much more popular. It's actually accelerating quite quickly. So the first reason is because it fits the way of the world. It's really the educational method that has evolved to keep pace with the outer world and the changes there. And strangely enough, it's being very much strengthened by the remote and distance learning that's going on now because it fits very well with remote learning. So, one of the problems that teachers usually state at the moment is that it's very difficult to engage students just by giving them worksheets or traditional methods of instruction. You can't really recreate the classroom in a remote environment. So a lot of teachers are doing projects because they're very engaging for students and they keep, I don't want to say keep them busy, but they engage students in meaningful work. And so the students are able to do more work on their own rather than just sitting in front of the screen, uh, just responding as if they were sitting in a lecture. So it's been very successful that way. And I just add one more thing. From my standpoint, project-based learning is not well understood in one sense. It's considered an educational method, but actually, the way I view project-based learning is as a human development method. So, in other words, in a project-based environment, students are faced with a challenge. They're working together and collaborating in a team of some kind. They're trying to solve a problem. They work together. Maybe they're designing a solution, and then they share their findings. And about it, that's pretty much the way people learn naturally in the world. So I think one of the things that you can say about PBL, it is actually a way that develops people. It's not just about academic mastery. It's about or covering the content or the curriculum of the course. It is about developing people. And that's probably, as you mentioned in the introduction, I am a psychologist, and I brought that thinking to my work in education because I am primarily concerned with the development of young people's well-being and their ability to be resilient in the face right now of a fairly difficult, challenging world. And so I think PBL is a very good method for doing that. And I think that's why it's popular. More and more teachers are recognizing that all over the world.
That's amazing to hear, and we really have got great insights in here. What definitely we are doing great here, and with the kind of understanding behind PBL, it appears to be very promising. Where or in which direction do you see PBL going? What is the direction for PBL?
Well, I think in general, we can say that education, at least everywhere that I see and read about and know about, whether it's the US or Australia or India, uh, there is a movement away from strict coverage of standards and a somewhat of a diminishment of testing as being the main way to measure progress. So something is happening on a very large scale in education that is even more than PBL, and that is people are looking for more authentic ways to engage students in learning. And that means being engaged in the issues around community issues, problems that matter. It's fairly clear to all of us as adults that the problems in the world are mounting. I think it's fairly clear to a lot of teachers that students have something to contribute, and project-based learning is a great way to engage them. So I think really the direction for project-based learning is towards more authentic work. I call it sometimes reality pedagogy. In other words, using pedagogy that fits your community and has something to do that is relevant to what is going on in your local world. And PBL can do a very good job of doing projects, students to work on issues that are important to them and to the future. So I think the direction for PBL is really contribution to a positive future.
Definitely. Engaging students in a very constructive learning environment has always been, you can say, the effort and must be the prerogative of all of us as educators, and engaging them in authentic ways of learning through PBL definitely is something which each educator or teacher in the class must look forward to. But Dr. Markham, when we think of our different school setups, we all are with different set of resources and different settings and all. How difficult can PBL be to implement? That's something which crosses our mind.
It's interesting. The way PBL is implemented in many instances, too many instances really, is it's implemented as just a project. So we distinguish projects from project-based learning. That's one of the first things we do when we're talking about PBL. So projects are just a way of choosing a topic, and students might do some research on the topic, and perhaps they write a paper or they have some sort of conclusion. And many teachers will settle for that as PBL. From that standpoint, it's not that challenging because it's not that different from what teachers might ordinarily do. If you want to PBL, the depth of PBL, then it becomes challenging because it's a problem-solving process. It's a design process. It's a process in which teachers have to facilitate and learning and coach. They have to move into all sorts of different roles. And that's a new skill set for a lot of people. And it's not, it is challenging to set up problems for students to solve. And by problems, I don't mean 2 plus 2. I mean problems that have depth and meaning and that are complex problems, what are sometimes called wicked problems, problems that don't have an obvious answer, and to take your curriculum and adapt it so that you can make those problems meaningful to students. That requires a depth of practice and depth of knowledge and depth of experience. And that's why it can be challenging, because it does require that to do really quality project-based learning.
So then this definitely, when we talk of, of having a design in our mind, or you can say setting up of profound problems, the solutions to which are not easily available or can be thought of by the students. That's the whole idea behind PBL. Engage them in constructive learning. With this reference, because a teacher is an instructional specialist in a class, what is required to be a PBL teacher?
Well, I think in three things really, Raleigh, that's required. The first is you have to have knowledge of what PBL is, just a basic knowledge foundation. What does it mean to have a problem or a driving question? How do you formulate your teams of students and facilitate them so they actually get work done, so they're not just talking in a corner about something, but they're actually working on the project together. So there's a knowledge base there. That's the first step, to understand what high quality PBL really is and what are the practices and best practices attached to it. The second thing is that it really requires that you are open to students. And I know that most teachers would say, oh, yes, I'm open to students. But I mean, you really have to have a certain attitude, that you're focused on growth, the growth mindset. You're focused on helping students grow in a personalized way, meaning not only always the way that the teacher would like the student to grow. It requires a certain tolerance and a certain openness. It's an attitudinal aspect to PBL. I've often said that you could tell who's going to be a successful project-based learning teacher by offering a personality test, because there's certain elements of personality that will help you make PBL much more successful. And it's an openness. It's a PBL is very much a process of learning, as you know. It's not just an end result. It's a process that you go through for whatever the length of the project is, whether it's 2 weeks, 5 weeks, or 10 weeks. And in that process, you are constantly assessing students' growth, not just mastery of the academic knowledge, but how they are responding to the challenge. And so and as we know, if I'm sure your teachers listening that right now, and I've been in the classroom myself, so I know, there's a great variation in human beings. And so as that happens, you are dealing with that variation during that process. So that's why I say it requires a certain openness. And I would say the third thing is, it is not something that you can learn just by reading a book or by listening to a lecture or actually by sitting in a well-organized workshop while an expert talks to you. It's not going to work that way. You actually have to get in and try it and do it. It's what I call a journey, passion project, and so forth. Well, that that's important, and you have to take it as a journey and it's experience. And I would say one of the things that very much helps is to have colleagues in conversation. I call it really the 3 C's: competency, colleagues, conversation. You have to talk about how you're doing your projects together. It's in schools if you can have colleagues who are working with you.
That's really good. So when we talk of having certain an insight into the best practices of PBL, something which requires a kind of transformation of or imbibing certain attitudes or qualities and personality to be a PBL instructor, how does one become trained for PBL? I'm sure it just cannot happen. You know, in a very routine way. We need to have polished insights. There has to be honing of skills, understandings to be refined. How does one become trained for PBL?
Well, first of all, I never use the word trained because I don't think actually you can train people. You can coach and help. The way I do it, I've done it in myself, obviously through books. I've been to 400 schools and I've dealt directly with teachers all over the world in many different countries, and we've had workshops, and that's been somewhat successful. But to be quite frank, I think the best training is when teachers take on the responsibility themselves to become a PBL teacher. And when they say to themselves, this is so important that I master these skills and that I know this knowledge and that I practice it in the classroom, because this is the way that we are going to really create a better educational pathway for our students. So it starts with the training really starts with not being a passive listener or a good workshop attendee, but making a personal decision that I am going to take on these skills and knowledge and I'm going to learn to do this. Now, once you do that, you can have workshops. I prefer, as you know, to offer online courses because online courses, I think, are the way of the world these days because teachers are very busy. And I actually think that the days of the workshop where teachers will come in a group of 50 to 100 and sit in an auditorium and listen to an expert are actually ending. Teachers now take on their own journey, and that the way to do that is to use online resources. And the way I design the online resources, which I think is important, is not to make even them courses, but more like a playlist of experiences, almost like you would have on your mobile, and decide what is useful to you and to tap into those experiences you need them. Then go back to the classroom, practice, talk to your colleagues, try a project, come back, see what I don't know, fill in the gaps, keep that process going. And by the way, it is a lifelong process. I have, as I said, been to 400 schools. I've talked to 6,000 teachers. I've been doing this for close to 20 years. And I always learn more about PBL, and teachers are constantly inventing new and interesting little twists to PBL. So it's still a growth industry.
Yeah.
It's not a static topic, because
Hmm.
the world is changing, as we said at the beginning of the broadcast, and as the world changes, we have to continue to adapt.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. And we all are evolving, the educators more everywhere. There is a refined understanding of procedures now. There have been so many things which we have been taking as, not very favorable, especially over this time and especially in country like ours. But yes, I'm sure everybody will be with me on the same page when I say that it has been a phase in learning like never before. We all have learned so many new things, and when it's a time to face the challenges, to go ahead, to adapt ourselves to the new, especially in the profession that we have chosen out of our own calling as educators, we must make space for the new practices, for the next practices, for what we just heard now, PBL being one very strong, you can say, way ahead in that. And I'm very sure everybody around slowly is more open to adapting these new ways, methodologies, which already have had, established, you can say, advantages, contributions to learning in different spheres across the world, across the grades. We all are learning in so many different ways, Dr. Markham, if you see, to collaborate. And when I was learning more about the organization, PBL Works, that is of yours, and when I was going through the literature, I got to know some amazing things, and I would just like to draw some ideas from there and share over here what I learned from the various, blogs over there, ideas expressed over there, is how collaboration can happen in so many new ways all around the world at everybody's end. While we know the teachers are not really excited about many features of this school year, there are opportunities for positive transformation. This is what most of us have realized, and rest of us will definitely do so as we see the new changes around us. For instance, we can always break free of the constraints of the classroom walls when we are teaching remotely. An interdisciplinary team, here in your case, maybe a project team, can host a Zoom call with all the grade level students. One teacher can take a lead, whereas all the other teachers, they host the breakout rooms during their work time. And we'll be having seeing pair learning also happening on the go, collaboration, collaborative learning happening on the go. An English department can bring about a project together, which one teacher doing the lead instruction, while the others, they're just providing timely feedback as the students submit their work. A computer science teacher, for example, and these teachers, or maybe across the city, you can say India here, or across the borders also, all can hold district-wide tutoring sessions in support of their projects. So there is so much that can be done, that can be thought of, that can be attempted. A teacher anywhere, maybe somewhere in Canada can get in touch with a teacher in Argentina or maybe in India. So much is possible. And one way of doing this, of collaborating, of indulging in some authentic learning, original learning, can be through PBL also, the project based learning. So, as we understand that there is a lot of blessing also in disguise, we here at Global Education and Training Institute also have envisioned to empower our teachers. And much in sync with the thoughts of Dr. Markham, we would not like to call it a training program. It is going to be an empowerment program. We are working on a number of programs right now, but currently we are planning to launch two extremely significant empowerment programs for teachers by this month end. One we chose to call Beyond Yesterday's Classroom, where we plan to teach advanced processes of teaching to speed up learning by the children. During the period of the training, or you can say the learning itself, flip teaching, diagnostic questioning, teaching for understanding, or instant feedback, personalized learning, all this is provided along with progress measurement and project based learning, for which Dr. Thom Markham has kindly consented to lead and guide us. So many thanks to you for this, sir. And the second course that we will be launching will be advancing spoken English skills like LSRW, and that will be in collaboration with Hounslow Language Services, United Kingdom. Each of these courses shall be 6-month courses with one session per week and 24 sessions in all. So this empowerment program, it is going to take place only once a week for 3 hours. Teachers practice the exact same concepts in their classes, whether the classes are virtual or blended or physical. We all know that we are waiting to see ourselves back in the classrooms. So even when we reach back in the physical school buildings, we would like to take this learning there. Teachers are supported in improving their practice. They collect, they share the videos, the pictures, or sample of their children's work. We don't choose a cumbersome method while ensuring learning by the sight. The use of applications that we will be teaching the teachers, which they shall be using with their children. It is going to immensely help in the classroom learning, which is going to be much more engaging and interactive. And it is going to help the teachers in the times to be, that is beyond the difficult times we are in. So we look forward to empowering your teachers, let's say, not just training them. This is how GETI envisions its training programs. We really feel strengthened when we see educators and when we see supporters like Dr. Markham with us. And dear sir, as your intention and your effort has always been to work collegially with other educators to discover, to empower, to improve, and to succeed, it's something that makes us educators on the same road walk with a vision towards transforming education. So, heartfelt thanks to you today for spending time with us, sharing the valuable information, joining hands with Getty for our training programs, your insights into project based learning. We would like to just request you here for some concluding words for all our viewers over here before we wind up this evening.
Thank you so much, Rolly. It was a pleasure to talk to you. I just want to end by saying that this is really, as you touched upon it, a global education movement. PBL is beyond teachers in India or teachers in the US. One of the reasons I founded PBL Global is because I began to notice as I traveled around that virtually all teachers in the world have the same concerns. So there's a very interesting education movement that is forming up. So when you take on PBL, you're not just working with your own system of education in your own country. You are, I think, joining hands with many educators from around the world who are really trying to change the direction of education for the future. So it's a very noble effort. I'm very happy to be part of it, and I look forward to with a lot of Indian teachers as we move forward over the next year.
Yeah. We have already received an overwhelming response from all corners, and we look forward to longer associations. You can say stronger associations with experts, educators, envisioned guides from all around the world. That is what Getty aims at. As you rightly said, making this movement of transforming education global in its nature. And we really want to travel beyond yesterday's classrooms in our efforts and endeavors. We will stay in touch, Dr. Markham, and for our bigger mission also. Thank you, viewers, from me. Thank you, Dr. Markham, from Getty, from Global Education and Training Institute. I wish you all a very happy Teachers' Day once again, and good night. Thank you.
Thank you. Goodbye.
Goodbye.